Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. It is time for the final edition of our 10-part series previewing North Carolina's fall camp that opens on August 2nd. The players report August 1st, first practice August 2nd. The season opener is September 2nd against South Carolina in Charlotte. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones. He is THI staff writer Brandon Peay, and we have done 9 position groups so far. Today, we cap off the series talking about safeties. We're going to do the special team stuff once we get into fall camp and learn more about special teams. We decided to push that back. I know I said a few pods ago we're also going to do special teams, but we want to get some more intel on where some things are sorting out on special teams because there's some stuff in flux there. So, Brandon, we're going to dive into safeties here. This is a position group that has tremendous experience. When you think about Gio Biggers, he started the last couple of years, played 777 snaps last year, 1,400 for his career. Will Hardy played a lot late, started late last year, but was a factor, was in some packages all season. Don Chapman's played a ton in his career when he's been healthy and able to get on the field. He actually hit the portal and then came back because he wanted to go home, be close to his mom who was sick, but he didn't find a school there that made enough sense to go to, so he came back to Chapel Hill. And Tavius Stick Lane, the transfer from Georgia State, has played a ton in his career. He's a 3-time All-Sun Belt performer. And Derek Allen, Marcus Allen's older brother, has played a lot. He's been at Georgia Tech for the most part, originally Notre Dame, then Georgia Tech, and he is certainly an older, experienced guy. So, Brandon, your thoughts when we think about North Carolina's safety position and the fact that there are a lot of old guys. Hardy's not old, but he's kind of old because he is football old in the sense that his dad's a coach and he's been around the sport since the day they brought him home from the hospital when he was born. He's been a football guy all along.
Yeah, I think this group is old. It has a lot of experience, but I do think there's room for improvement when we're comparing the performance to last season to what I think they can do this season. I think going out and getting Tavius Lane from Georgia State, a guy who has 12 interceptions in his career at Georgia State, I think that's a really good thing because it's just adding more playmakers to the back end. In our cornerback podcast, we talked about Elijah Huzzie, how he's a playmaker. So you're starting to see a pattern of what the UNC staff is trying to do with its secondary as a whole. They're trying to get as many playmakers as they can back there. I've always mentioned Will Hardy about how he led the state of Georgia in interceptions as a senior in high school. And I always say that playmaking is one of those things that translates to this level. I've said that many times. So I think that's what the UNC staff is doing. And then when you bring in, then you got a guy like DeAndre Boykins, who in my opinion was, I'll say, amongst the most steady guys of UNC's defense last season. And I think having him back, I think actually outside of Drake May, I think we both agree on this. Outside of Drake May, I would say DeAndre Boykins had the biggest breakout season of any UNC player on the roster. So he has one season under his belt now. So I think this year he's ready to make another step and actually become a star, like not the position, but an actual star in the college football landscape. Because I've mentioned this before, but I think the star position in Gene Chizik's defense is just set up to make plays. And
just so people know, we're combining the star position with the safeties in this discussion as well. We're not going to do just a separate star podcast because it would be 5 minutes on DeAndre Boykins and we'd be out. So because there's a lot of question about the star position. Since you brought Boykins up, let's do the star position right now, and we'll go back and finish up safety in a minute. I agree with you. Boykins had some big plays. Go look at the end of the Miami game. That's what he brings. He brings some physicality to the position, but he also brings a lot of spring. He's a gritty kid. He played 931 snaps last year, and he just goes out there and hits. He's a guy that I think could take another step forward this season because he has that 1 year under his belt. He was a breakout player. There's no doubt about it. And I think that when other things around him become more consistent, I think his talents will shine even more. They'll come out even more. the cornerback, we talked about the cornerback podcast. If they press a little bit coverage more and they allow more opportunities for plays to be made, I think you're going to see DeAndre Boykins make more plays at the star position. What's behind him? I don't know. That's a big question, and that's going to be one of the things that I really focus on this fall during fall camp in August, because it would have been Day Hollins, but he left. He left twice. He left in December, decided to come back, saw a bunch of dudes were leaving, decided to come back, and then he left at the end of spring again. I think Don Chapman is someone that could back up at the star position and give him some breaks. I actually think Chapman's a guy who could get it on the field a lot, but doing a variety of things. He's an older guy. He's a smart guy. He could give you 20 snaps at safety and 15 at start. If there's some attrition at corner, he can go over there and play. He could do a lot of stuff on special teams. I could see him having that kind of a role with this team. But is he the true backup at star? I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do there. And I think that's going to be one of the interesting developments in August. But going back to the safeties, as we finish out the safeties, I'm going to go through each one of these guys, and let's just give, 20-second take or so on each one. Because I agree with you. Yeah, you go ahead and dive in.
So I just want to comment on one thing, because I think that's a really good point about DeAndre Boykins. You said once everything else around him is more stable, you will see his talents flourish. And I think that's a point that I don't want to just roll over. I think that's an excellent point. Yeah. Because I think last season, with the lack of trust in the corners, he was always dropping back, trying to help the corners out. So if you can get more steady play from your corners and you can let him roam around a little bit, let him come up there with the linebackers, blitz him more, because he showed last season he was a great blitzer. Yeah. He's a playmaker. He didn't have the interception number, but he's a playmaker. When he blitz, he makes things happen in the backfield. So if you can get more steady corner play and you can diversify the ways that you use him, I think that'll be really helpful for UNC's defense. Okay, go ahead.
If they can blitz him more, look at Miami's last offensive play last year. So if you want to think about if they have better coverage, they can blitz Boykins some more and go back and watch that play, and you will see more of that. So your point about the experience with the safeties, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to play at a high end, because there's still a consistency issue in the back end of the defense. Consistency was such a problem in the secondary last year, and it may have been an even bigger problem at safety. Now, Cam Kelly was really good at times, and then I had somebody who's very interesting, I'm not going to say their name on here, say to me in the spring, every time I saw a guy from the other team just running into the end zone in the open field, Cam Kelly was chasing him. And I understand that. And Cam made some good plays, but look, he even acknowledged consistency was a huge issue. Now he's gone. Now he moved on. He left. You're looking at Gio Biggers is the most experienced guy in a Carolina uniform back there. Gio has had consistency issues. Probably needs to be a little bit more physical. I don't think Chapman starts something because I think they want to use him in a lot of places. I think Antavius Stick Lane, and Mac loves his nickname. Like, gotta love having a safety named Stick. You got to come up there and play the run, be a run defense and reinforcement. I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. Started 30 games at Georgia State, 3-time All Sun Belt guy, and he's got 2 years of eligibility, because his first year was a COVID year. So this guy could be 5-time all conference. Not many dudes can do that. 226 tackles, 11 interceptions, 13 PBUs. That's a lot for safety guys. And go back and watch Carolina's game at Georgia State last year. You were on the field, Brandon. He had a pick. I think he forced a fumble as well. And Mac said a couple months ago that they're watching that game and like they noticed him. They knew about him ahead of time, and they really noticed him during the game. And that when his name came up in the portal, they're like, "Oh yeah, we want this kid. Yeah, this kid could be a difference maker because he is physical, and he's a playmaker, and he's just got like a swag and an attitude that you want to have on defense." And I think it's been lacking. There's been swag at times, but the swag hasn't been backed up by performance. Swag is only good, is only useful if it's backed up by performance. Otherwise, it could be a significant detriment. And I think that in Stick Lane, they see someone who has all of that.
Yeah.
And Derek Allen, very, very quickly, Derek Allen, I think they're looking at him as just sort of a reserve, and to look at him as a special teams guy. I don't anticipate him starting or being the third safety. Could, but I don't anticipate that. So go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, I remember being on the field. I remember at halftime, I came up to the press box at Georgia State. And I remember telling you, Georgia State, they're a mid-major team, but they have a defensive tackle that's really good, and they have a safety that's really good. And that's who I was talking about. And then on the way back down to the field, he gets an interception before I get down there.
Yeah, the defensive tackle you're talking about, Carolina, I believe, pursued him a little bit in the portal, and he went elsewhere. I can't remember. He may have gone to Miami. I'm not sure where he went. But, yeah, they stood out. And the Sun Belt's a good league. It's interesting. Carolina has an all Sun Belt guy on offense with Willie Lampkin. He was Sun Belt Offensive Lineman of the Year last year, and a 3-time all Sun Belt guy on defense they brought in. It's a good league. They've won a lot of games. And so those are accomplished guys that have played a lot of football that aren't going to be phased at all about playing the Carolina schedule this year. So I kind of like the safety position. I like the maturity. I'm a big Will Hardy guy. He didn't show up until the summer last year. And I remember when we would ask questions during fall camp, who's standing out? Offense or defense, guys, Hardy, Will Hardy. And I'm like, really? Because a lot of people complained when Carolina pursued him. And I'll never forget when he came on his official visit, and Jay Bateman, who was the defensive coordinator at the time, is out there on the field after the teams were in the locker room. Bateman's just talking to him for like 15, 20 minutes. It's right there in the goal line area in the end zone over by the tunnel where Carolina comes in and out of where the locker room is. Spent a lot of time with him. And Dina's like, they want him hard. They're pursuing him hard. They really want this kid. They see that, again, another example where star ranking doesn't mean squat. And they absolutely love him. He's just reeks football player. So I think that the safety position is going to be better this year than it was last year. And I know we've said that about everywhere on defense, but I expect the defense in general to be better, Brandon. I mean, it should be better. Second year of Gene Chizik, you made the necessary change at corner. And you brought in Ted Monachino to help Tim Cross up front with the defensive line, and he's a pass rush specialist, something they need to improve on. You brought in Amari Gaynor at Jack. I think they're much better at the Jack position than they were a year ago. Nothing against Noah Taylor, but they have 2 guys now instead of 1, so they can deal with some attrition. And they should be better at corner, and they should be better at safety. And they're really, really solid at middle linebacker, and they've got some depth there. I think the one question mark is who backs up Boykins. If something happens to Boykins, who's the guy? Maybe in a month from now we'll know. We'll do a lot of pods in August, but I really like the way the defense is shaped out, and I think that some of the additions they've made have brought some needed experience and maturity and improving consistency that was just such an enormous issue the last few years in the secondary.
Yeah, I agree with that. My final thoughts on the defense, I think there's a lot of pressure on them this season to put together a more consistent performance across the whole season, because I think they are the key to getting Carolina to the next level of where they want to be. Instead of finishing last season 1-4 or 0-4.
Last 4. 0-4, yeah.
0-4. Well, they did finish 1-4, but 0-4. Maybe they can turn that around, win a couple of those games, and now you have a different looking season.
Yeah, I think if the defense last year they ranked well into the 100s, just about everything. If they're in the 60 range overall, but they get more turnovers, that's a key. And to be in the 60 range, they have to get more sacks. They have to get more TFLs. They were dreadful in those areas last year, and they got to force more turnovers. If they can do that, and they're in the 60s, they have a chance to have a special season. I think the goal is higher than the 60s, but I'm looking at it from, it's reasonable to expect them to be in the 60s or at around 60. When you think of the talent, you think of the experience, and you think of that brain trust, all that should connect where this group is somewhere around 60. If they're in the 40s or even if they're in the 30s, then this team's going to win at least 10 games.
Yeah.
If they're in the 40s to mid 40s to 60, I think that they're a 9-win team for sure, with an opportunity to make plays on special teams or somewhere else that lift them in another game to get them to 10 wins. So it's going to be very interesting to follow, and stay with us throughout fall camp. We are going to have daily reports, tons of intel that will only be on our message boards, and you can only access that if you pay a simple $8.33 a month for a 1-year premium subscription. You have access to everything that we do and be a part of an amazing community on our message boards. If you're tired of not finding someone that could talk Carolina football or basketball or recruiting like you can, because the guy at work doesn't really know that much, and the guy down the street that you see every once in a while when you walk your dog, he doesn't really know that much, go to our boards because they all know a lot. They're like you. They're passionate, they're knowledgeable, and they have an appetite for daily interaction about North Carolina football, basketball, and recruiting. So head on over to our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com, become a member, and you get access to everything else that we do. For Brandon Peay, I'm AJ. Thank you. And if you've missed any of these pods, you can find them on our site, or you can find them on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, which is Tar Heel Illustrated, or just scroll down on Twitter forever. And when we put them out there, you can find them on Twitter, which is at Heel Illustrated. You were going to say something?
And if you agree or disagree with anything we say, you can come over to the message boards and
let us know. Let us know. Fire away at us, man. If you disagree, let us know. We always want to know what other people think. That's absolutely, and that's what's so great about the board.
Yeah.
And the board's actually respectful. Every once in a while there's some cattiness going on over there, but that's all right. Makes it a little bit more entertaining sometimes.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.